I don't care what Salieu thinks or what you think or Omar or Lamin here or what Mr. Barrow thinks, because they are no better Gambian than me. So they can say whatever they say. They can go and write a paper they call a draft because of 2024. I said it is not. That's why I call it Barrow Papers.
I mean, it's obvious there's a fear factor in people speaking up their mind, especially if it's criticizing, say, the government.
The executive is just one arm. The executive is just the cabinet, the president and his cabinet ministers. So in those clauses, meaning the executive will sit at State House just like the way they sat and then drafted this 2024 constitution to make decisions based on those provisions. That is problematic.
I think to begin with, civil society and the political parties should come together and try to reconcile the difference that is the party differences. Once we get that on the table, where the political parties and civil society, both political parties, I mean all the political parties meet and let us have a strategy around this with national interest in mind.
We are saying that we Gambians, we want our leaders to be honest and have integrity. Simple.
I can't see. Can you turn the volume up?
Can you say it again?
Volume up. Volume up.
Volume down.
Thank you guys for joining us today on the Daily Dose podcast. I was going to read out your bio for you guys, but I think it's better for it to come from the horse's mouth. For the people that are listening on our Twitter spaces, on my right I have Omar, and I have Mr. Taal, I have Mr. Njie, and I have Mr. Madi Jobarteh. I'll start on my right. Omar, you can introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Omar Saibo Camara. I'm a human rights activist and transitional justice advocate, and currently co-founder of the Fact Check Center, the Gambia, the first ever fact-checking organization established. And I'm interested in governance, human rights, and democracy. And I have a background in political science from the University of the Gambia, and currently doing my master's in transnational governance at the Florence School of Transnational Governance, EUI, in Italy.
Okay. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Salieu Taal. I am the past president of the Gambia Bah Association, and I was also one of the people who initiated and started hashtag Gambia Has Decided back in 26. I'm a private practice. I'm a legal practitioner, and I'm very much passionate about citizen empowerment, justice, and human rights. Thank you.
Mr. Jobarteh.
So my name is Madi Jobarteh. I live in Cambodia.
Where is Cambodia?
West Coast region.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, from Borabado.
Because you're smiling and it sounds like it's out of Gambia.
Yeah, it's it's a very historical place. Yeah, so I'm in the civil society. It's an independent voice, interested in the democracy and the good governance of the Gambia, the development of the Gambia. So yeah, I engage on freelance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, that's what I do.
Yeah. Lamin Njie, we've had you before, but for the new listeners that do not know who you are, you could briefly introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you for having me, Gando, once again. I am Lamin Njie. I am a teacher by profession, and then I have a background in Consumer Protection Association. I worked with them before. My interest areas basically are on advocacy on human rights and consumer protection. Currently, I'm pursuing a postgraduate diploma in international relations and diplomacy at MDI, Management Development Institute.
Okay. So, I mean, all of you are obviously experts in your, rightful fields. And we're here for one reason and one reason only, is to discuss the Constitution. What I wanted to do initially was to focus on the current newly drafted Constitution, but I think it would be fair to just really understand what the Constitution is in the first place, because I think a lot of people don't know what the Constitution entails, or like what's the significance of it, especially for the average Gambian. So, this is not a specific question to anyone. Anyone can jump in. What is the Constitution? What is the Gambian Constitution? Why is it important for Gambians to know what it is? Mr. Taal, you're...
Oh, Comrade Madi has... yes, okay, first of all, let me say that the Constitution is basically the foundation stone, I would say, the foundation of a republic.
Mm-hmm.
Republic meaning that, a country that's governed by elected people who are elected by the people, as opposed to having a kingdom where you have a chief, a king or emperor. A republic is where citizens elect people to act on their behalf, so they are serving the people.
Mm-hmm.
So the foundation of that republic, that state, is a constitution. So it's more than a document. Even though it's a document, it's in writing, it basically spells out the different institutions of a state. For example, there are three main institutions of a state. You have the legislature that make laws, that's National Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
You have the executive that basically implements those laws, headed by a president. And then you have the judiciary, adjudicates what the law means, interprets laws also when there's a dispute.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, at the head of all of this is the citizen, the supreme citizen. All power in a state comes from the citizen, and that citizen has given those powers to these three arms of government, these three arms of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And the Constitution describes the relationship between the citizen and also the different states, the different acts, the different actors in terms of the executive, legislature, and judiciary, and defines their powers.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically, in a republic, everybody's powers is defined. It's like if you're a Muslim or a Christian, you have a Bible or a Quran that say what you can or cannot do very clearly, right? In the same way, in a republic, that constitution says what you can or cannot do. It sets the limits of power. It sets the rights, responsibility, and obligations of citizens, of duty bearers. So basically, it is the most important document, the most important that creates all these institutions and sets their boundary. So it's really like, they say it's the mother of all laws. So every single law that is passed has to be consistent with the Constitution. For example, you cannot pass a law that is not consistent with the Constitution. Any institution or head of institution, when they act, they cannot act outside the powers provided for by a Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Example, so a president is governed by a Constitution, just like you and I. The IGP is governed by a Constitution. A minister, an imam, everybody is governed by the Constitution. So it's a very, very serious document. And not only that, it will govern us today and for generations to come. Constitutions are not things that you change overnight. It takes a long time. We had one in 1970. The next one we had in 1995, right? 96.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are talking about having another one. So look at the time it takes. So it's a document that we have to think of very seriously, because it will govern every aspect of our lives over a long period of time.
We're talking about decades here.
Decades and generations. In fact, the best of constitutions hardly go through changes. Of course, it has to be dynamic so that it can be adapted to time of the day. But it fleshes out the aspirations. That's why in the beginning you have a referendum. A preamble that sets the direction the country is taking, where it's going and why it's going there and how it's going to go there, get there. That's the preamble. So it's a very, very important document. And every citizen should really understand the importance of a constitution, and also should try to understand what's in the constitution. Should also be interested in any constitutional building process, because it will affect them today and generations to come.
So the follow-up questions would be, again, anyone can jump in, would be if the citizen should know what's in the constitution. Is the constitution drafted in collaboration with the citizens, or is this like a body that is separate? I mean, if something so important is being drafted that is affecting citizens, are citizens involved, like during the process of drafting this constitution, or how does it work?
No, I would say you continue this conversation with Salieu Taal a bit more, because it is important we establish the legal basis, and is in a better position to do that. I mean, certainly I can speak about law, but my interest in this is in terms of the civil and political rights and what he said, aspirations. Yes, and so how citizens engage, but more importantly, when all the legal stuff is done, what does the constitution mean for me in Cambodia or in Boraba, in Banjul,
exactly.
so as a youth, as a person with disability, and so on, as an ethnic minority, or as a Muslim or Christian, or whatever. So I think the question you raise, I mean, if he does in mind, I think he needs to speak a little bit more on it so that he gives us a basis and direction.
He's the lawyer here. So back to you.
Yeah, so everyone has to stay in your lane.
Right.
Oh, okay. Let me first make something clear. A constitution is drafted in legal language, right? Because legal language is drafted by lawyers, draftspersons, and creates legal rights and obligations. But it is not entirely a legal document. It's a legal, political, social document. So it's a very special kind of law.
Yeah.
So it is all encompassing. That's why I think, first of all, it's also important to make it clear that lawyers don't have a monopoly of knowledge or wisdom of what should be in a constitution. They may know how to put it in legal language. I don't necessarily know more than Madi or Omar. I may understand the legal precepts that underpin a constitution. But those concepts exist for a reason, right? For a reason, to serve the interests and welfare of the citizen, because all powers emanate from the citizen. So, yes, in terms of in terms of constitutional making, because the constitution, the way you make a constitution is as important as the final document you have. So constitutional making or building process, it's like a building. It's like you're doing a building. You're making a building. So you're making a building. You now call the different actors and stakeholders who are going to live in this building. Right? And then, of course, you might have the carpenters, the masoners, the architects, and so on and so forth. But the people who are going to live in the building, the dwellers, are the citizens. Now, for that reason, constitutional building process has to be, there's one thing that's important. It has to be a legitimate process. Legitimacy is about those who own it should see themselves in it, should own it. It should be in their interest. So legitimacy and legality are two different things. Legality, you follow legal steps A, B, C, D. It says you have to do it. But legitimacy is those people who are now giving this power to these different arms of government have to partake in its building. You have to take, like Madi said, how does one in Cambodia see themselves in the constitution? So you need to be able to consult those from Cambridge and all around the country. Right. So for that purpose, in building a constitution, it is very, very important to consult the citizens, to hear what their views about in this endeavor. What kind of constitution do you want? That is why, for example, if you look at the CRC, Constitutional Review Commission, was established by Act. The first thing they did is they went out to the country. Before they started anything, they went out in all the regions of the country and had a discussion in the Bantu Bahs in every region. They said, "Oh, we are moving from. We all knew what happened in the last 22 years. We need to have a new constitution. What kind of constitution do you envisage? Do you want?" And they started listening to different people. People were saying, "Oh, everybody will have different views, different perspective,
right.
And they will listen to the people through those engagements, different engagement." Then, of course, you also have civil society. Civil society also represent different interests of the citizens. It could be a thematic area civil society that looks at women empowerment. It could be youth empowerment. It could be for persons who are hard of hearing. It could be the bar association. It could be another group. So all these different stakeholders, you consult them all for the purpose of bringing the divergent views of the citizens. So that's why it's very important to solicit the different views and perspectives of the different stakeholders, because it's not easy to make a document that is for everybody, right?
I imagine it's complicated.
It's very complicated,
complex.
because first of all, it has to be sort of like it has to be a consensus document, because not what everybody wants can be in a constitution.
Right.
But you must, as much as possible, approximate the collective aspirations of the people in their diversity, and also importantly, recognize the views of the minority. For example, we are a country of Muslims and Christians, right? If you go around and listen to what only Muslims say, you might discriminate against the minority Christians,
right.
In terms of numbers. But they are citizens, and in a republic, all citizens are equal. So it's a very, very delicate balance. So it's very, very important that for a constitutional building process to be legitimate, it's very important to get to consult as widely as possible. And not only widely, also in terms of the divergence of views.
Right.
You consult across the country, and also in the diaspora in the case of Gambia, and also across the different demographics,
Right.
different religions, different stakeholders, and you put it together. So that process is very, very, very critical in constitutional building. And this is not something that is necessarily written in law. This is basically the best practice. If you want to have a constitution that reflects the aspirations of the people are diverse and different, you have to consult the people as extensively as you possibly can.
That is ideally what should happen.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's move on to why the amendment. What brought about the amendment?
No, I just want to follow up on this. Why the amendment maybe, that one Mr. Barrow will come and answer that. Because I did not ask him to amend it. Yeah. But based on the conversation with Salieu.
Yeah.
So for me, what I just want to tell as citizens, I think a lot of those points came out in his conversation, is to recognize that this constitution is about them, about you personally, all right? Because as he said, some people may think this is because you see a constitution is the supreme law is there, so this is for lawyers. And Gambia, typical of that, you write something, they say cyber lawyers, internet lawyers, something like Facebook lawyers, and what do you know about the law? So I think it's good he said that, but also it is not for the president. He doesn't own it. And he mentioned preamble, and the aspirations we expressed there, and the whole idea of constitution, as he said. So that when you follow that conversation, what you come to realize as a citizen is that actually this is about how I live in this country. Yes. What rights I have in this country, but also what duties I have in this country. And I'll go further to say what benefits I have. To be a Gambian is not for free. You should have benefits because you are also spending.
Yeah.
Yes, not just your taxes, but the fact that you elect somebody, give them power, it means you have invested. And so Gambia, you should say Gambia as an investment. I should benefit from the Gambia. And what I should benefit from the Gambia, defining that constitution as my rights, whether it's about education or electricity or good roads and clean communities, clean environment, the peace and stability and the security, all of these, you should see them also as benefits I should have, and for which I have paid someone.
Yeah.
What I want to be, I can be that, without denying anybody to be what they want to be. So you want to be a journalist, you created a daily dose. That doesn't mean I cannot also go and create, nightly dose. You know what I'm saying? Or monthly dose. So that as citizens, also and I think that has been contention even 2020, people look at things from the point of fear. If you put this, I remember all this conversation about secularity and all of those things. At the end of the day, we want a constitution in which if I want to be a Muslim or Christian, I can be it. If I want to be a musician or, a journalist, I can be it. I can move from here to Basse, I can buy property and so on. So, in other words, the ownership you talked about, to realize that this is my constitution. And I want to tell Gambians, don't give space to anybody as far as the constitution is concerned. Yes. Don't hesitate. Yes.
What do you mean don't give space to anybody?
That is, don't shut up because, they said you don't know. Or it's lawyers who know, or it's about politicians, it's about National Assembly, it's about the president. No, because there are no better citizens than you. They don't have any more right than you.
Right.
So don't stand back. This is your constitution. If this constitution is trash, say it that this constitution is trash. Don't feel ashamed. Right? You are not wrong to say it, because what this constitution is about, if we followed Saliu's comments, it's about my life and my future.
Right.
And I would say the future of my children and children's children. So I don't care what Saliu thinks or what you think or Omar or Lamin here or what Mr. Barrow thinks, because there are no better Gambian than me.
Right.
So they can say whatever they say. They can go and write a paper they call a draft Constitution 2024. I said it is not. That's why I call it Barrow Papers. You know what I'm saying? That's their idea, that's their opinion. And I completely reject their opinion and I call it trash. And that is my right. So I think citizens got to see the Constitution as I am building my future, my life today and tomorrow. And there is no better Gambian or lesser Gambian than me. And so I'm going to stand in front. And I'm not supposed to be behind anyone or in front of anyone. I'm just going to stand in front. So if Gando wants to stand in front to my shoulder, fine. If Lamin wants to stand by my left, fine. But I'm just not going to stand behind Lamin there. No. For me, we need citizens to begin to think that way, because look, we've been independent for 60 years. And, everybody wants to go out. How can you have a country where everybody wants to go out? You don't have hope in your own country. Not all the problems, if I want to listen here, will be here till tomorrow morning. And they don't have to be, because we have paid for these things. We can do these things. But those problems are coming since independence. We have this problem because our constitution has never been made, purely, squarely, purposely for us, the citizens. 1970 Constitution, 1997 Constitution, which we have, you read it, you see that this Constitution is serving somebody else more than you. And somebody who is sitting in public office, you've elected, you pay, and they enjoy, monies, they enjoy benefits, materials, from you, and you sit there struggling in that hot gele, in that, imagine you traveling to Bora, but the torment people go through. So for me, it is high time Gambians own Gambia. And so as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what anyone thinks. I sit, thank God I have credit. If I don't have, Salieu gives me credit. And then I go and write my opinion. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? So that is why, for me, I see this constitution. It's about my life today and tomorrow. And the life of my children and their children and so on. But I care about you to have good life. I care about Salieu to have good life protection. And so I'm not taking anything from them. I'm just saying, let's have a fair system. Yes, let's have a fair and just system in which opportunity, everyone with hard work and everything, the opportunity is there to make it. Yes.
I just want to shift a little bit. We'll go back to the Constitution. I mean, it's obvious there's a fear factor in people speaking up their mind, especially if it's criticizing, say, the government. There's a real threat because we've seen it. So, obviously in the Constitution, it is a fundamental right for you to speak your, freedom of speech. I believe it's in the Constitution. So how do you, how can Gambians navigate this fear and understand that it's their right, it's theirs, it's nobody's. You don't have to wait for the government or anyone to tell you this is your right, own it. But at the same time, understanding that there's a fear. There's a real fear there where, you say an opinion 1 minute, they don't know where you are.
Yeah.
How do we navigate this?
Anyone can give his opinion. How do you navigate it? But I think for me, it goes to what Sal said. Knowing what a constitution is. Yes. Probably most people don't still conceive or perceive the rationale, the purpose, the value of a constitution. Maybe still some people are looking at it in terms of this is a lawyer's thing or this is a politician's thing. It's a political party thing.
I would think most people in Gambia see it like that.
Yeah, so, if my party, is from Barroso, we are NPP, we support it, and we are opposition, so we don't support it. Is the National Assembly, let's leave it to the National Assembly, because I hear that let's leave it to the National Assembly to decide. Who is National Assembly?
Right.
Really. So, so probably that is it. People not knowing this thing, and which is a difficult thing because it's a learning thing. How do you make most people understand what is the purpose of a constitution? So because we've never had a constitutional issue like we have in this period, this past 4 or 5 years. So how do you navigate that? This is good way to come and talk about it here. Yes, but I don't think there is any standard or universal formula to say this is how we navigate it. But one can say the basic issues would be about people's knowing what they are dealing with. Yes, and that's how I say it.
Okay.
Maybe I would like to jump into that.
Go on.
I think to begin with, there should be this reorientation of Gambians when it comes to their civics. And this, we go down to grassroots. For us, maybe, let's say, the few of us here have an idea as to this written document. This is a constitution, and this is what it means. Already, Kotosal has already explained this. And from where I sit here, I can already understand what a constitution is. But then, those out there in the hinterlands, like he mentioned, those in the last village in the Gambia, our moms, our sisters, our brothers, the little ones who are going to be leaders tomorrow, and those, in fact, going to school, do they really understand what is at stake? Currently, if you want to speak to people about this, like you mentioned, they begin to see you like you are too political. Why do you always want to talk about issues of constitution, issues of, governance here and there? Reorientation, that this thing it matters to you, it is important to you in as much as it is important to me the one who understands it. But how do we do that? Language is important.
I was just about to ask.
I understand public consultations were made by CRC during the formative years of building this constitution. They went round. Saibo, I remember, was one of the voice of the youth, right?
Yeah,
the voice of young.
Our voice,
Exactly.
our national voice.
Our national voice, that campaign. That was very popular in the country. It went round. Campaigns were made, and then people came out, they aired their opinions, how they want the constitution to be. And the 2020 draft constitution is a reflection of what the people wanted to be in that constitution. Now, this reminds me, this brings me to this question, Uncle Kotosal. When a constitution is gazetted, what does it mean? Because now we will not refer to it as the draft constitution. We already named it as the executive's constitution. Others are naming it as, Uncle Madi already said, it's Barrow's papers. Others are saying Barrow's constitution. Now, what is a gazetted constitution for the layman out there? Once a constitution is gazetted, what does it mean, and what are the ramifications?
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. As you rightly said, it is not yet a constitution. Just to buttress the fact that it is the people who decide what is the constitution. That's why the final stage is a referendum, right? Prior to that, our elected National Assembly members will also have to agree to it. So what is gazetted? It's a bill. It's a bill. A bill has been, the rejected draft 2020 has been dusted again, and the executive, that is the president and his cabinet, have looked at this rejected document and made amendments. They've added things, reduced things, rewarded things on their own, and in line with the constitution, because the current constitution governs how you change a constitution. Section 226 says this is how you make these kinds of laws. So under the current constitution, before you present a bill, a constitution, before you present a constitution to the National Assembly, you have to gazette. Gazette just means publication. It's just legal language. It's a publication. As opposed to a newspaper, it's a way government, talks to the people. So it's government's newspaper. It's a gazette. So when they say gazette, it's basically, rather than going to the standard or the point, you gazette it. So when something is gazetted, it means the government has published it. That's
to
why
the public?
Yeah, to the public.
Okay.
So that's why it's gazetted, and you go to printing, they print it and give it a number. So the idea of gazetting is to bring it to the notice so that the people will see it for transparency. So they have drafted, they have redrafted or changed the bill, and now, as required by law, they have placed this bill, for the public to see for a period of 90 days. That's why it's gazetted, right? They gazetted, but because of now technology, the gazette is usually a paper, it's paper form, but they actually uploaded it to the website, which also brings me the question of those Gambians who cannot read English. Because first of all, it's uploaded on the Ministry of Information website.
Yeah.
And I also know that from my experience that it was difficult to get a copy. If you go to the printing office, the last time I found out they didn't print enough copies. Right? That's my information. It may change. So basically, just to answer your question, it's been published in the Gazette and uploaded in the Ministry of Information website for the citizens to have a look at it. And after 90 days, it's going to be gazetted another 10 days. Right? Another 10 days. After those 10 days expires, then it will now formally be placed or tabled at the National Assembly, who will now there are different stages. First of all, they do a first reading, just introduce the bill, and then the second and third reading. The second reading looks at the principles of the bill, and then at that stage, if they agree that in principle, we should have this bill should go to the next stage. They need to vote. They need 75% of them have to agree that in principle this document suits our aspirations. We should have a constitution. The last time, that's why it failed, right?
It didn't meet the
numbers. And basically, you need. They have 58 National Assembly members, so I think you need about 43.
43.
Let's say 43, right? Round number. So 15 can, if any 15 disagree, we're done. And then after the second stage, it also have a third stage, which also requires that threshold, another 75%. If that passes, then it will now go to referendum, which will require 50% of all the registered voters. I think about 900. We have about 900,000 plus.
Yeah.
So let's say 50. So at least 450,000 Gambians should actually vote, and out of the 450,000, 75%. So it's
I have to say yes.
Yeah. But
okay, so the public still has the power to vote for or against the bill.
yes, but before it gets to us, the citizen, the sovereign citizen, it has to pass the
National Assembly.
You remember Madi's famous campaign, "Don't touch." Yeah. So the law has, because we have elected the NAMs. They serve at our behest. They serve us and our interests. That's what's in the Constitution. Madi, even though he's not a lawyer, but I think he is very well versed in the Constitution, right? Section 112. Yeah, very clear. So this National Assembly, before it gets to the citizen through a referendum, they are the ones who decide, according to our current Constitution, whether or not it should go to the next stage. So if they don't agree with it at the National Assembly, then we don't even have a chance to decide whether or not we should have a constitution. And I find it very problematic. But that's the law. But the law, because you have to remember, this is a law that was designed during a dictatorship. It was a law that was self-serving, because the former regime, they didn't want their constitution to be changed easily, because having changed it 52 times, they kind of like ring-fence the constitution to safeguard their interests. So now we are now faced with that challenge and difficulty, where we want to move from a constitution that really, in our opinion, is not fit for democracy, to one that is fit for democracy, to one that is people-centered. So it's really it's a very, very it's a huge challenge. But I just wanted to explain so that people understand there are different stages.
Yeah, I picked out. So you said it's been published online for the public.
Yes.
But then again, you mentioned it's in English. Not a lot of people read English.
Yes.
I would add to that, it's in a lawyer's language, or like a legal language.
Yes.
Even the people that can read it, you read it, it sounds, it's English, you can read it, but understanding it looks like Chinese, right? So, they're not really catering to a large number of people. I'm guessing the hope is someone is a lawyer or understands legal language in a family that could explain to the others. But is there a way that you could, design this in a way that Gando can understand it? Because I don't understand legal language.
Well, I think that is why you have civil society has a big part to play, and also the bar and other partners. I think it is our duty to spend time to really break it down so that the citizens can understand the Constitution. That is our role. To really, from now onwards, our duty is really to really break this down to the bare essentials, so that we can explain to the citizens what these words actually mean, and not only what it means, the import of these words. But like even lawyers have different views about the same document. But since it's a document that governs all of us, I think it's important that we explain this document in a non-lawyer language, so that people can understand it in a very simple terms. And for us, let's say the Bar Association and also the civil society, I think from now onwards, we really want to spend time to really break it down so that people can understand the contents of the Constitution, so that they can make an informed choice about the constitution, what should be in it or what should not be in it. And also, by the time it goes to National Assembly, we can tell our National Assembly what we expect of them. Because Mother and I, earlier, we were at Center CRPD, they were publishing their 10th report, survey. I think 71% of Gambians have rejected the 1997 Constitution. They don't want it. Only 24% want it. So we all agree that 7 out of 10 Gambians want a new constitution. I think about 67 want the 2020 to be brought back with amendments. And for those amendments, I mean, it doesn't. Well, that's what it said. But also, these amendments for them to really for this bill has to go to National Assembly, right? Before it even gets.
Yeah.
So what is very clear should be very clear to everybody. Gambians, by and large, want a new constitution. Gambians, by and large, supported draft constitution. So the question is, how this amended 2024 bill, how does it fare? How does it fare in relation to what Gambians like overwhelmingly? Because at the end of the day, the majority of people want the 2020 constitution. Have rejected the 1997 constitution. Now you have a government that has one arm of government that has changed what the majority of people want, and have brought something else without talking to us beforehand. So the question is, what will our National Assembly members do? The ones that we put there, how will they act? Are they going to act in the interest of the majority of Gambians or not? That's the big question.
I'm going to jump in.
All right, thank you very much. I'm enjoying the conversation. At some point, I just want to be a listener, but I want to talk about something that is very, very important. I'm glad that Uncle Sal brought in the statistic of what Gambians want. And this could be seen a reflection of what is in the draft constitution 2020. But let's give a bit of a context. What happens? Why do we need a constitution in the first place? You know, we had the 1970 constitution that ushered us into the First Republic. And then moving forward, we had a constitution in 1997. The 1997 constitution ushered us into a Second Republic. You know, and then, you know, I was just 2 years, but through readings and then, you know, interacting with people that were active at that time, at the time of the building of that constitution and it coming into effect, it was a progressive constitution. It wasn't as bad as it was when Jammeh was leaving Banjul in 2016.
So you're saying the 1997
constitution at the start, you know, according to readings, was a progressive constitution. It was a constitution that, even though for me, I think Gambia's constitutional building generally is more of on colonial basis. We establish our laws based on, you know, the colonial laws that were ruling us here, you know, because we had the monarchy system of the UK, we have the Queen and everybody answerable to him. So our leaders tend to lean on those principles to give themselves so much power, you know, in our laws. That have been a tradition from the 1970 constitution down to the 9. That's why you see there are clauses in the constitution that have been used by the British then to suppress citizens of uprising against and demanding for freedom. For example, let's say the Public Order Act, you know, is one example we could give. You know, but after that, moving forward, Jammeh, you know, and his government then touched and then amended the constitution 52 times in 22 years. Technically, every year, one or twice, that constitution is amended to suit the interests of one individual. You know, in 2016, when we changed government, you know, we went into a transitional justice process. You know, and one of the principles, even though currently transitional justice experts are arguing that because of the complexity and then the complications around constitutional building, it should be separated from the normal transitional justice process like we are facing today. However, we wanted a constitution. You know, Gambia has decided. What did we decide? We decided that we need a new constitution. We need a better democratic dispensation. We need progressive society. We need a society where laws and governance system reflect the need and aspiration of Gambian people. And we went into a constitutional building. You know, by 2018, the CRC was established. In 2020, the draft was produced. Like we said, it was consultative. It was engaging both Gambians home and abroad. It was the voices of the Gambian people. It reflects the need and aspiration of an ordinary Gambian. My mom in the garden in Bansang wanted that constitution. My uncle in Nyamina wanted that constitution, regardless of the bots in the constitution. No constitution is perfect. Maybe Council Sal will tell us globally, we only need a progressive constitution, a constitution that reflects what we wanted and where we want to be, and then put us in a foundation. And then, when we had that constitution, there were disagreements, that are normal. We were supposed to negotiate those disagreements, but from the production of the 2020 draft, we could see, a different color with the executive, because the clauses and sections they disagree with or they frown at were the center of our democratization process. That's why the clauses and sections that were supposed to give us the foundation, because today, as a field researcher, most of the time I go to the field, you ask people about what do you want in the constitution, they will tell you they need term limit. What do you want in the constitution? They will tell you we want a constitution that will give us better healthcare system, better roads, better education, rights. Our rights must be respected, and then the executive took this to the National Assembly and it was rejected, without accusations. The executive had a hand at that time on the rejection of the constitution. The constitution went on coma or complete death for 4 years down the line. And from nowhere, a publication was made that the constitution have been amended and ready for the introduction. Who amended the constitution? During the building, we have the civil society, we have the Gambian people, different stakeholders came together to build a constitution. And then one part of that stakeholder went back, bought coffee, and started at State House, and then butcher that constitution around evolving power on one person and bring it back to us and said, we have built a constitution for you. The 2024 draft is not the people's constitution. It doesn't reflect the voices of the Gambian people. It doesn't reflect the needs and aspirations of the Gambian people. I'm so, Council Sal and Madi will get into the sections of this constitution, but the constitution is as problematic, if not worse, than the 1997 constitution and for me. Therefore,
that's where I was heading into, because I want to understand what sections of this constitution that the executive, were iffy about.
So I'm scared that the government of the Gambia today, the executive today, are too scared of accountability, which is a foundation of democratic dispensation. Let's talk about section chapter 5. Uncle Sal will do the legal interpretation.
For the record, are we discussing the current gazetted?
Yes, the current gazetted.
Because I want us to get into that. I just wanted to have the foundation of what the constitution is about.
So the current gazetted, and we will get into the legalities. Maybe Council Sal will well with that. But I just want to spot out one thing. Let's talk about chapter 5, leadership and integrity. Okay. This chapter, from a citizen perspective, is trying to put, our governance system, our state into a point of accountability, that responsible leadership, code and conduct for public officials, that public officials don't take us for a ride. They should be subjected to transparency and accountability, regardless of who they are. This is omitted.
In simple languages.
What
does it mean?
It means that we need leadership that is responsible, a leadership that upholds to the moral values of our society.
And what are they saying?
Basically,
if they do something, they
hold accountable. They should be on the principle of integrity. When we talk about integrity, we're talking about being straightforward, being truthful, being honest.
Right.
To the Gambian people. And then the president, also the executive rather, refuse, and they are telling Gambians that, look, you cannot hold us accountable, you cannot give us, sections that are holding us accountable, because we are too scared to be held accountable, because we will do what we want to do.
If I understand correctly, you're saying that section holds people in power accountable, and they're trying to remove that, or they're trying to change it so they're free of accountability.
The entire section have been removed.
So you're saying if say the president, we don't want to have another dictatorship, but God forbid something like that happens again after his presidency,
this one is not even talking about that part. We will come to that. That talks about immunities and all of that after power. What you're talking about, this is a simple language for moral upholding as a public officials, and that have been removed. Another section that is really scared is section 31. If you look at section 31, the drafters of the constitution, that is the CRC, have reduced detention and arrest to 48 hours. That within 48 hours, the state should have a reasonable reason to charge somebody for being arrested and detained. They have taken it back to 72 hours. What is the interest of the state keeping people for 2 days, 3 days without charging them? What interest? And these are human rights issues. But now, for me, what is more contradicting in the Constitution, and I will stop there, and then probably others can continue, is Section 49 and Section 56, I think. Section 49 talks about right to education. Right to education is a fundamental human right. In the 1997 Constitution, we said basic and secondary education shall be compulsory, free, and accessible. In the draft, they remove secondary education. Now, it's only basic education that implies to be accessible, free. However, now they're telling us that to be president, to be minister, the highest qualification you need is to be high school. But in fact, now we have to struggle to get high school education. That doesn't make sense.
That is a contradiction.
That is a contradiction.
Okay.
So these are some of the clauses, and for also as a young person, I believe these are clauses that are directly going to affect the growth and development of young people. And then you go to, they say this in Section 49. You go to Section 56, they're now saying that youth development, that, we need relevant education and training, but you are denying us free, accessible, and, compulsory high secondary education. How do we get to that point? And one more before somebody can say, please, one more. This section is of more importance of me. You look at the section that talks about 133 or 133 in the draft, and now 144. I think Madi can help me. I'm not very good with sections. That talks about the nomination of five nominated members at the National Assembly and the recall. 133. In the 1997 Constitution, the president have the power to nominate 5 members to the National Assembly, out of which the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker shall emerge. Right? But the Constitution was silent on how they can be recalled. But then Jammeh, because the law was silent, Jammeh was dismissing and appointing people in those nominated positions. When Barrow came, he tried testing those powers. He attempted to remove Yakumba. Yakumba went to court, and then the interpretation of the court is you cannot remove, once somebody is nominated by the president have no such powers to remove that person. But however, there are no sections that say the president can recall. You know what they did in the draft gazetted 2024? Now, it's exclusively indicated that the president can recall a nominated member. What kind of society?
That's 133.
Yeah, what kind of society are we trying to build? A society where we are creating a law that evolves around one individual, making one person so powerful to an extent that he does what he wants to the dispense of the Gambian citizen. Where are the separations of powers are not reflecting in this draft constitution? Check and balances are zero. Even to be president, they have omitted that you cannot, the highest qualification you can have is high school. No discrimination. But we need to create standards for ourselves if we want this society to go. All right? So I'll stop here. But I think generally the 2024 draft is not the people's constitution. It does not reflect my needs and aspirations as a Gambian. And I don't accept that constitution. Thank you.
Mr. Madi, you can jump on it. Oh, by the way, we have, we have Dr. Baji join us through Twitter Spaces, so here and there he would also jump in.
I don't know how much time I have here. The entire constitution from the preamble, Sal talked about preamble, how problematic it is up to the end. I have a host of issues, because they change so many things. But basically, what I want citizens to, when they look at this thing called Barrow Papers, as far as I'm concerned, what powers and functions or obligations are given to the state? People need to bear that in mind, knowing that the state exists for us and not for them. So what powers, what obligations, what functions, and I would even say what immunities, and what benefits have been given to them. So I have big problems in terms of that. Two, checks and balances. What mechanisms, provisions have been created there to restrain the power of the state, say the president, and public officials in general. That should also concern citizens, because we need to check. Power is heavy. And then finally, I want citizens to bear in mind on the rights and duties given to them. All right, bearing in mind that the state exists for us, and above all, this country belongs to we the people. I think the constitution is the preamble. It started that we the people, something like that. Okay, So we should be concerned about, for me, these three things are what I look for. What rights and duties, and as I said, when you say rights, you talk about benefits, have been identified for me. So Omar talked about, say, education. I don't want to think it is oversight or forgetfulness that you make primary education free and then tertiary education you want to make it free, but secondary education, the detention issue. And even, I think, as we said, the language, because I struggle with the language, and, Sir can help us on that, on liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, Sir, in the 2020 and the 97 Constitution, I can go to court on behalf of someone, all right? But also an organization can go to court for the defense of the Constitution, to take a violation to the Constitution. And we've seen that happen here. He mentioned CRPD and Gambia Participate had gone to court for the, some issues they feel are a violation of the Constitution or are unlawful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this Barrow Papers has taken that out. So meaning only individuals can go to court, or you go on behalf of someone whose rights have been violated, or if you feel there's a constitutional violation. But as an organization like Gambia Participate may not go to court. So those are rights, because at the end of the day, how many individuals will go to court for that? Because do you have the cost to do that and all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, so these three things for me are critical. So check out for the rights and the duties given to you as a citizen. Check out on the powers and the obligations, the functions given to the state, and then check out on the checks and balances, the measures put there to restrain power. All right. Let's say a parliamentary check. If you look at this, and I've been writing on this, immense powers have been given to the president to practically appoint the whole government on his own. Yes, you appoint a CDS on your own, you appoint an IG on your own, you appoint director of public prosecution on your own, you appoint members of the National Human Rights Commission on your own, and the ombudsman on your own, the auditor general on your own, because you say subject to or in consultation with Public Service Commission or judicial, and you appoint those people as well. So practically, you are just the one appointing everybody. Now that's how that's North Korea. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So these Barrow Papers want to bring dictatorship in this country.
Through legally
to legalize dictatorship. Mm-hmm. Yes. So parliamentary checks have to be there. And I hear some of the NPP and government people saying the president has to, if you give somebody power, has to have power. So that, we don't need parliamentary oversight. No. The purpose of parliamentary oversight is to make the president responsible. It doesn't take away the power of the president. So the president, you can appoint a minister. But the parliamentary oversight, the value of it is saying, if you appoint a minister, don't go and appoint us, some riffraff, some, inexperienced, uneducated, some corrupt person.
Mm-hmm.
Appoint somebody who has the character, who has the qualification, the competence, the experience. Because what does a minister do? A minister in charge of a ministry. That ministry is about our life.
Right.
If you are minister of health, you are in charge of our life. If you are minister of sports, you are in charge of our life. So if you want to put anybody as minister of sports or health or education or interior, it cannot be anybody. It has to be somebody with the right competence, qualification. So the parliamentary checks are aimed at that. So the president will really go and study who should I put here. That is the rationale. So that, otherwise the president can bring, a bunch of criminals and make them ministers to plunder our resources, because a ministry has huge resources. Go and look at the budget, how much billions is given to Minister of Health, Minister of Education, Minister of Finance, Minister of Health, Agriculture. So that much money you are giving it to somebody to oversee people's money, that person has to have character, integrity.
Right.
So this is why that parliamentary oversight is critical. So if you remove that, the minister can appoint the president can appoint ministers. Look at it. Let's recall the ministers Jammeh were appointing, all kinds of ministers. He can appoint you, the next day he removes you. At will. Why? And that is serious. Look at, in other democracies, even ambassadors, the parliament checks it. You propose an ambassador, the ambassador goes there, because you are representing us in Senegal, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in United States. So it cannot be any Tom, Dick and Harry. You have to be someone really qualified that you represent the dignity and the integrity of the Gambia. But you cannot appoint people in our embassies and they are involved in sex scandals and fraud and corruption and fighting each other in the embassies. We have seen that. So, and this country doesn't belong to Barrow alone or the president. It doesn't belong to one person alone. It does to all of us. So the public office carries not only our will as citizens, because the Constitution says the sovereignty of the Gambia resides in the people of the Gambia, but the public office also carries our dignity as people. Imagine a Gambian official, in a sex scandal in China. I mean, you shame every Gambian.
It is a reflection of
Yes.
Gambia.
So we cannot just sit here and say because he's the president, you go and appoint anybody as ambassador. Why? No, that has to be checked. Parliament as our representative should go and look, why did you appoint Sal as your ambassador? After all, Sal, what does he know? What can he do? Oh, Sal is competent to do this. So yes, he's a right candidate. Oh no, he's not a right candidate. Man, we got to be serious with our country. You know what I'm saying? The president, we are electing you, but we are not electing you to rule us. No, we are not a ruler. You know what I'm saying? You are not a ruler, you are a president. Okay? So you cannot tell you, go and appoint IGP. You go and put anybody as IGP. Why? Because IGP, our lives are in the hands of the IGP. Practically, literally, your life is in the hands of the IGP. If citizens don't know that now that your life literally is in the eyes of the IGP. Because IGP can arrest you. If attackers attack you, it's the IGP who should come and protect you. And they sit there, they don't come and protect you. Armed robbers are not going to die. So your life is in the hands of the IGP. So for a president, I don't care about Gando. Really? Who is Gando? Who is Lamin? If you elect Gando as president, who cares? Maybe, but I don't care. I don't care about one man from Mankamakunda. Do I care about one other man from Mankamakunda? I don't care. But I care about the fact that there is a president.
Right.
Whoever he is. And my life is in your hands as the president. And I'm not going to negotiate that. You know what I'm saying? So if you are going to appoint an IGP, man, you got to appoint a proper person to be my IGP, because I know my life is in the hands of that IGP. So the parliament needs to check. Man.
Got it.
Huh?
Yeah, so I think Madi, this reminds me, this freedom, the specific rights on freedoms and rights. There is an entire provision removed. The consumer protection rights. It was mentioned in the draft constitution, but entirely it has been removed, just like the leadership and integrity. So it begs the question, I want to ask this. Now, we have the Consumer Protection Act 2014, but now we don't have it in the constitution. If this should pass, what are the implications to that, of that?
Okay. In response to, there's a reason why, like I explained before, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So when a particular provision is elevated to the Constitution, it's a reflection of how important or the degree of importance of that provision, right? So, for example, the fact that we have a primary legislation that's like National Assembly, Consumer Protection Act. That is a law passed by Parliament, but it doesn't have constitutional standing.
Yeah.
But it's still a law, so we still have consumer protection. But if you remember, the CRC, there was consultation around the country. So there are certain laws, certain things that people want to be put in the Constitution. There's a lot of argument between different jurists or luminaries as to what should a constitution look like or what it shouldn't look like. There's no one way of writing a constitution. we have to remember, I personally, for example, I think the Constitution is too long. That's my personal view. But I also understand that the Constitution is a product of our experience. Because of what we have been through. We had a Constitution in 1997, which was butchered 52 times. During the 22 years, we have an executive, right? We have a judiciary, and we have a legislature. So we have the three arms of government, and for all intents and purposes, we were a democratic country. We were having elections. So during a democratic, 22 years, quote unquote, a democracy, we've seen what has happened to the institutions of the state. We've seen what has happened. So I think what informed the Gambians to want a people-centered constitution, as you know, the constitution we want as the people, is to avoid what happened in the past. So I always laugh when I talk to my legal friends. I say, look, in this constitution, we were kind of like legislating against a Jammeh type president. We don't want to have ever again to deal with a Jammeh kind of president, because you never know.
Right.
It can happen. So for that reason, for example, when you talk about leadership and integrity provision, a whole provision was taken out. Chapter, right? A chapter that's saying that you want, and that chapter, when you say leadership, it doesn't talk about the president. It says leadership across the board. It's not unique to, it's anybody who's in a leadership position. Yeah. We are saying that we Gambians, we want our leaders to be honest and have integrity. Simple, right? Very simple. Even if it's a proclamation, right? To say that you expect your leaders to have integrity, to be honest. You want to make sure that your leaders don't take gifts that could influence how they decide. Financial probity. This is more like a guide. I say that if you behave in a way that is not in line with our expectation of ethical leadership, you are violating the Constitution. There's a reason we did that. Because we've seen what happened under the previous regime. All of you have seen the Jammeh Commission. We've seen kind of leadership, not only with Jammeh, but different leaders. So people want ethical leadership. Not only capacity, you can be the smartest guy in the room, you can have capacity, but we also want you to be honest and have integrity.
Right.
That's why that provision is there. So to elevate that to the level of a constitution, because we as Gambians, that's what we want. That's why we put it there. So now, for that to be removed, right? It doesn't mean that people cannot be prosecuted for corruption. There are other ways to. If you commit a crime, you can be prosecuted for corruption. It doesn't mean exclude that possibility. But I think giving it that constitutional standing and force is a reflection of where we stand against corruption. So now, for the executive to remove it, they should really tell us their stand on this issue.
It says a lot.
It speaks. For me, it speaks. For me, I was shocked. I was shocked.
Sir, I think probably they should tell us why, but we should also know why, because as you speak, this is accountability measure. So removing this is simply the executive is telling us that they are dodging from accountability.
Will we have that opportunity maybe on the 28th?
Yes. Yeah. Like Madi said, I'm a bit more diplomatic than Madi. But the executive will come and explain to us, as they said, and we'll hear it. But we also will draw a conclusion. I think I personally think it was really, it's very, very disappointing for the cabinet to even think about removing this. So for me, when I I've looked at the draft several times, and I'm trying to ask myself, what has informed these changes? And at the heart of these changes, I think a common thread is that we have an overbearing executive that is doing as much as possible to dilute the power of the citizen and the other arms of government to hold it accountable. And it's as if we have amnesia, because that was exactly
what happened,
how Yaya Jammeh behaved.
Yes.
That's exactly how Macky Sall was behaving until his removal. So what are we learning from our own history, from our neighbors?
Sometimes.
So I
hearing
sorry.
this, like seeing what's happening, it's almost like an insult to your face, and you know it. They're insulting you, like they're insulting your intellect, and it's like for some reason we're just numb, like. I don't know, or maybe we just don't understand it enough, or a lot of people don't understand it.
I just want to follow that. For me, it's very disheartening.
Yeah.
For those Gambians who are appointed, not elected. They're all appointed apart from Adam Barrow. They're all appointed by Adam Barrow to serve our interests. We elected Adam Barrow to represent our interests. He actually appointed them and delegated authority to act in our interests, right? To really sit down together and come up with changes that is basically perpetuating the same system that we all came together to remove. Because like everybody has already said, the president under the current 97 draft and constitution makes all appointments pretty much with consultation with bodies that he has appointed, whether it's going to be the Public Service Commission or the Judicial Service Commission. That is the 97 constitution. And we wanted to move away from that because we wanted certain offices to be independent, like the IGP. When the IGP is deciding to prosecute, it should not be based on any other interest other than somebody's committing a crime or about to commit a crime. So we want that person to have security of tenure, to be appointed independently. But so for that reason, in the draft, his appointment is subject to parliamentary confirmation. Not only one, to bring parliament as part of the decision-making process, and two, also, we'll have a public hearing where you will know what kind of person is going to be your IGP. It is very important. Look at the DPP the same. Not in the, the DPP is under the direction and control of the Attorney General, who is also a Minister of Justice, who also sits in cabinet, who also can be fired by the president anytime. So the Minister of Justice, who controls the attorney, under whose umbrella the Attorney General is, and under whose direction and supervision and control the Attorney General, the DPP, Director of Public Prosecution, is working, can also be terminated by the president. So imagine if you have a situation where, how can that? Isn't that already a conflict of interest? Then you have every single instance where there's a requirement for Parliament to confirm has been removed in the Constitution. Every single. And I think something also people have not looked at, and maybe some of the lawyers.
I don't want to cut you off, but I really want you to emphasize exactly what you just said about removing basically the power from the Parliament.
Yes, and then one thing, I'm going to remind Uncle Sir so that he doesn't forget about that. I don't know the legalities, but and then also they have removed every part that said the state to the executive.
I'm coming to that.
I don't know if you have realized
I'm coming to that. I was going to come to that.
Sadly.
I was going to come to that. That is even that's a very telling sign, right? Okay, I'll first address the fact that every single instance where there's a requirement for Parliament to confirm an appointment has been removed. So all independent offices are appointed by the President on the recommendation or in consultation with bodies that he's also appointed. So if it's going to be in consultation with the Public Service Commission, he has appointed them. If it's going to be in consultation with the Judicial Service Commission, he's also the sole appointing authority. So he's basically there's no check. So he has exclusive power like a king. That's why. In Africa, our problem now is elected dictatorships. You can have dictatorships of military people. You can have dictatorships that are elected. Jammeh was elected for all intents and purposes. You can argue about whether elections were free and fair, but he was winning elections, and that it was a dictatorship. And the way we are going, the trajectory we are going, is apart from maybe certain gross abuses that Jammeh was able to do, but in terms of the balance of power between different arms of government, that's where this draft is taking us to. despite the fact that on paper you have introduced certain independent institutions, somewhere else you actually claw back the right. For example, freedom of assembly, right? Now they have removed the portion that says freedom to picket and to hand over petition. So the freedom in the 2020 draft, you have a freedom like to walk down and petition peacefully without arms. That has been removed. Why? I mean, like Omar said, currently police have the power to detain people up to 72 hours, which in my opinion is abused systematically. For that reason, people said, look, we should limit it to 48 hours. In the 2020 draft, you actually come back and say, no, it should be 72 hours. I mean, so for me, it goes to show you that the government, the executive in particular, as one arm of government, is really interested in concentrating as much power. I mean, as a Gambian, I want my president and my executive to have the power to govern, not to rule, like Madi said. Governing and ruling are two different things. Kings and emperors rule. In the Republic, we are governed. We want to give him enough powers to be able to govern us, but not unfettered powers. So what they've done is they want to limit the possibility of really holding the government accountable in different layers. Even, for example, not only do they curb the ability of the National Assembly to hold government accountable, they also did it for the courts. For example, there's a provision. Remember, during the impasse, all of us were involved in different ways, right? We had a National Assembly that decided in the middle of the impasse to declare a state of emergency. Jammeh declared a state of emergency. National Assembly extended it. They have the power under 1997 to extend the power for 90 days, which means after we decided that Jammeh is out, he can be in power for 90 days.
The life of the
life to give him time. Right? So under the 2020 draft, that 90 days was reduced to 60, which is shorter, which has been shortened. They took it back to 90. So we're always going back to 97. And not only that, they took out, there's a provision that says that, yes, the president, there's a reason, it makes sense that there are instances where the president can declare a state of emergency, like during the COVID era. They can declare, it's part of the tools that the president has, right? He can declare, and the extension can be done by the National Assembly, so there's that oversight. But in the 2020 draft, the power to declare and the power to extend is subject to judicial oversight. So you can go to court, like Madi Jobarteh can go to court, or Salieu Taal, or Omar, and say, well, we don't think that the Constitution, the president exercises his power the right way. We're challenging his power to declare a state of emergency, or we're challenging the National Assembly's power to extend. That is removed. So to really wrap it up, going back to what Omar said, the language of the Constitution, the language of the 2020, sorry, not the Constitution, of the 2024 bill, I will not call it ballot papers like Madi. I call it the Cabinet Constitution. I call it the language of the Cabinet Constitution. You've seen wherever you find state is replaced by either government or executive. I think I want listeners to listen to what I'm saying very carefully. Wherever you see state, they take out state and put government. And for me, this is not just semantics. You see, governments come and go. Government of Jawara has left. Government of Jammeh has left. We have government of Adam Barrow. It's not going to be here forever. But the state is permanent. The state is an embodiment of all of us, citizens. And the only thing that's permanent is the state. There's a reason why we use the word state in a constitution, not government. Even though these things, they can be used interchangeably, but the drafters wanted to remind the duty bearers that your loyalty is to the state. The state is higher and embodies all the arms of government. And so the language for me is very troubling. Why?
So they've switched it.
Oh,
Is that
yes.
what you're saying?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the other thing is, quickly, I will allow you to go to that. The other thing about that language changes is this: wherever they put government, is a bit understandable because that's an embodiment of both the all the three arms of government. But where they put executive, the executive is just one arm. The executive is just the cabinet, the president and his cabinet ministers. So in those clauses, meaning the executive will sit at State House just like the way they sat and then drafted this 2024 constitution to make decisions based on those provisions. That is problematic.
I mean, this cannot be an oversight. This is
let me,
It's
Omar,
It's deliberate.
quickly, I mean, I'm also a student of political science.
Yeah.
Right? You see, the state is a much broader concept. It's a much broader concept than government.
Right.
It encompasses political, legal, and institutional frameworks. Right? Government is more limited. So even though you can use them interchangeably, but there's a reason why there's emphasis on using the word state. I understand your point, but I think it speaks to a lot where in the beginning of the document, you are deliberately almost confining, because if you, to the citizen in the street, if you ask him what is government, they will say it's the executive. That's the understanding of the citizen. So I think the use of language also is an indication of the mindset. Because right now, for me, the framers are cabinet. The changes are framed by cabinet until it is changed or otherwise by the National Assembly. So why is this orientation towards really narrowing it down to government? The Gambia is bigger than the executive. Gambia is the three arms of government working for us as citizens. And I think when we say the sovereign power of the citizen, it has meaning and import, not just rhetoric. So for that reason, it should be very, very clear who has the power. And for me, the balance of power has shifted radically towards entrenching the state.
Is it also true in the gazetted constitution, they propose the budget of the judiciary should be in the hands of the executive?
Well, not okay. No, it's not in the hands of the executive.
Okay.
I mean,
just to be, I don't fully understand.
I mean, it's just the executive transmits the budget. Like the executive cannot touch the budget of the judiciary. They just transmit. I mean, the budget is given to the judiciary. I mean, given to the office of the president, and the president will submit it to the National Assembly.
Who gives them the budget?
No, the judiciary write their own budget. They write their own budget.
Okay, they write their own budget
so,
and submit it to the executive.
And the president cannot change it.
Okay.
But he can make notes.
Okay.
So for me, I find it problematic that even the optics of the budget going to the president's office, even as a conduit, I find that problematic. I think the judiciary should be able to submit their budget directly. Without going to the presidency.
Because it is an arm of government.
Yeah, because even symbolically it sends a message.
Exactly.
For me, and that's the problem.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem. The problem is in the gazetted 2024, every little power or direction is centered on one person. And then what they've also failed to understand is, like you said in the preamble in the beginning, the constitution are supposed to stay longer. You know, if you're drafting a constitution, you don't draft it to suit the interests of one individual that is not going to be here. You know, we are with 1997 constitution. Jammeh is not here today. You know, so tomorrow Barrow will not be here. So we need to, build a constitution that is as progressive and that could also stay longer without the problem of, we need to amend it all the time because that becomes the problem. The draft constitution for me is very, very problematic. And, the clauses that he has analyzed, all of these clauses. But I also think one thing as a young person interested in youth development and in youth empowerment, I think this constitution does not reflect our needs and aspirations.
Not at all.
I talk about the section on the right of education because in secondary education is more of young people. But in fact, let's look at the Teacher Service Commission. High population of the teachers in this country are young people. We see how we struggle in the field. Some of us have to quit. We were all teachers before. I'm a qualified teacher actually, but I have to leave the teaching field to navigate through life to see better opportunities because there is no welfare. There is no roof to be better if you're a teacher in this country. The service commission is supposed to, at least empower and then have a commission that will look into the welfare of teachers that have been removed.
Entirely.
And then that's the thing. What interest do they have with these clauses that those in fact directly affect them as executive? Why are they removing them? Why is power centered around the president so much that the president could do it? Even the clause also that talks about the election of the speaker and the deputy speaker. In the draft, now we talked about that the speaker and the deputy speaker should emerge from the elected National Assembly members to ensure that we don't have the speaker and deputy speaker appointed by the president to serve and then curtail, the conversation in the assembly like it used to be. That also have been removed. It has been going back to being elected from the 5 nominated members.
And the IEC chair.
No, that's what I'm saying. All of these independent individuals.
Wait. You're saying the IEC.
The chairman of the IEC is going to be appointed by the president in consultation with the Public Service Commission, and the Public Service Commission, like Uncle Sal said, like Madi said, is appointed by the president. So the president is not subjected to any confirmation
because they
or approval by an oversight body in the way he appoints people.
Omar, I think you've touched a very important point there. Going back to, first of all, the concept of having nominated members. Right? You have members who are not elected, who are chosen and to serve on the National Assembly, chosen by the president picks whoever he wants to be a nominated member. Not only are they chosen, from those 5, 2 will be speaker and deputy speaker. So basically, and the speaker the role of the speaker is very, very important, apart from presiding over the National Assembly. When you have, you're like second in line, right?
To the vice president.
To vice president,
yes.
After vice president.
Third in line,
exactly, third in line. So you could actually potentially be president, right? Of course, you can say the same thing about the vice president as well. But I just think that, for me, it compounds that lack of legitimacy. Right? We cannot. Everybody in that assembly should be elected. For sure. That is what is normal.
Yeah.
In the past, nominated members were people who were completely apolitical people who are maybe from minority groups and so on.
Because that's the language the Constitution is supposed to speak. The Constitution should speak in a language that those who are supposed to be nominated are clearly spelled out from marginalized groups, such as maybe youth, people living with disability. It should be clearly spelled out who the president can nominate.
Yeah. I think we should even. I think
he started something like that.
Get it off.
Boris Festa. He started something like that. All those who are nominated, we are from this marginalized group.
So that
was his discretion.
I think we need to do 2 things. It's either we get it off, everybody is elected to the House, or the Constitution is very clear who the president can nominate. And coming back to the speaker and the deputy speaker, like you said, let's say today another section of the Constitution, I've seen Madi did a very good analysis of it. That is, if the office of the president becomes vacant, the vice president take over for the rest of the term. That becomes problematic. If the vice president could not, the speaker becomes. What happens if Sal is president and Sal appoint his son, his daughter as deputy, and then resign, and then just want to cover up and then build a political base for that individual? So I think this draft constitution is dangerous to our existence, and then the people need to know this. How can you say that if the president leaves office, okay, the vice president take over, but in the 1997 constitution, within a period we go into a by-election? I think we go into election.
I think 90 days, right?
90 days we go into elections. But now the vice president or the person who should step in have to finish that term in office. Meaning, if I'm president after 5 months and I pass on and then my office become vacant,
1 week.
1 week. Yes. No, the vice president or the speaker or the chief justice take over for the rest of the 5 years.
4 years.
Doesn't that sound like succession?
51 weeks.
And these are sometimes logically you connect them. Let's look at the National Assembly Salaries Bill and all of that. Is the same telling me that if I come to office and I resign after 1 day, my benefits continue. So technically, you look at these laws, sometimes you balance them. You see sometimes all of these arms of government are in collaboration of the kind of interest they want to build around themselves. That is dangerous.
So, it's not only about whether they want to entrench themselves and their families, or so to speak, but then also it's dangerous because let's say the vice president knows that immediately the president goes, I am going to be the next. You are telling the vice president, you are giving him like an opportunity that he can say, look, this is my chance, huh? Why don't I just squash this man off and then take over?
Okay.
I mean,
Yes.
If
he's gone,
Yeah.
yes, I can be president. Then let
Let me just assassinate and
So one thing I know, such processes are very, very dangerous.
Yeah, they are dangerous.
And then
They don't even know what they are doing.
So somebody told me that, okay, civil society stakeholders, can we negotiate the 2024 draft constitution? And I told them probably I would have negotiated the 2020 draft with some of the clauses. Let's say, for example, the retroactive nature of the constitution. Then, we could say. But today, let's say if we are going to negotiate anything like that, anything by that, I think that clause also is removed. The retroactive part of the constitution is removed.
You mean time limit?
Yes. So
Time limits are
meaning
removed.
now,
No,
the start date, they didn't mention the start date.
Yes.
they don't mention the start date.
Well, they removed. There was in the 2020. It was very clear that the first time will count.
Yes.
I think it's Schedule 5.2
Yes.
that has been removed.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So let's say if this constitution come to power today, one of the reasons why we removed Jammeh was longevity. He has stayed for 22 years. So Barrow could stay for 20 years, 2 years difference. What is the purpose of removing Jammeh on those bases? So I think there's a lot we can.
You just go to EQ and bring back Jammeh.
Yes, exactly. I think
No. But okay. I think I also want us to really look at the whole issues holistically. Gambians don't want the 1997 constitution.
Definitely.
Gambians prefer the 2020 draft. The 2024 rejected draft 2020. The 2024 bill really, with the changes, falls short of what we want. So we are really between a rock and a hard place. We are put in a position where it's like 2024 or you go with the 1997 constitution. So we are put in a very delicate place, because if you really unpack it, if going by the 2024 bill, my personal view is that I can discern from that draft bill that the executive wants to retain as much power as possible. Those powers are even worse under the 1997. So where we are right now, I'm not saying that we should accept the 2024 as it is, but even if it fails, they will have more power on the 1997.
Regardless if this one.
Yeah, I mean, if this one doesn't pass, we will actually be continuing with the 1997, which I think. So we're really in this political ping pong.
Uncle Sal, and I think that's the purpose. They did for me.
Yeah.
They did this on purpose.
So for me,
It's deliberate.
For me, how do we? It's water under the bridge, right? The bill is gazetted and we were not consulted, right? So now, what is the way forward?
Well, me is very simple.
Yeah.
2020 draft constitution. I think sometimes we also forget about ourselves and focus on that other person to the point that we don't realize the power we have. So what you said, yes, when you look at it, if you don't go with these Barrow papers, then we are going to go with the 1997, which we don't want.
With the Jammeh papers.
With the Jammeh papers. And we don't want both, so we need to go with the people's papers, which is the 2020. So that's the call we just got to make.
So we go back to the 2020. This is what we want.
I mean, we go back to the 2020. So for me, my demand is this process to be aborted completely, all right? If they don't do it, that is, if Barrow does not do it, I call on the parliamentarians, when these Barrow papers come in 3 months' time, because they edited out of 2020, edit it back to 2020, and give us 2020. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. If you don't do that, now the onus is with you people now. Yes. But Barrow did his illegal thing to go and edit our constitution, our draft, after spending millions of dollars and so much effort. Okay, nobody asked him to do it.
But it's not illegal, by the way. For the record.
No. But to me, to me also, it's not only illegal and unconstitutional, but it's treasonable.
Oh.
Yes, that is where.
Okay. Can I think
so. That one, Gando, you have to organize a debate to discuss the legality of the Barrow papers. You bring lawyers and me here to debate that.
Okay, so let's do this.
I think his action is treasonable.
Okay.
So let's do this. So Kumadi, on what basics do we have to get into the legalities of amending the constitution or touching the 2020 draft, right? I think I remember I asked this question.
Yes,
I asked you this question, Uncle Sal, in one of our Twitter space. I'll quickly. And then the thing is, what are the legal basis of having the 2020 draft reintroduced untouched?
Look.
So, gentlemen, maybe I have to step out.
Yeah.
Yes. But Sal will handle that.
Okay.
But this thing, I think I commend Daily Dose, but I think Daily Dose and all the media, I think every day, because the gazetting is 3 days, 3 months.
In 90 days, yes.
Yes. So there isn't time. So I think we need every day folks to discuss this. I think the media should do us that favor to keep this conversation alive, knowing the importance of a constitution. And I hope all media houses will have a daily discussion on this. And I'm jumping really to another platform to continue this conversation.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
But also beyond the media, I think we need to go back to the people, because there are people that don't get access to this media. But that conversation continues. Yeah. And then I'm coming back to Uncle Sal. There is a debate around the legality of the...
Mr. Madi Jobarteh, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, he has to go somewhere. So thank you very much, sir.
We will follow you from that other platform as well.
So
but this debate should have find you here. So that's the thing. I asked you this question from our last Twitter space, Uncle Sal, that what is the legalities in having the 2020 draft reintroduced untouched? That is one. Mm-hmm. Two, I think I'm not a legal practitioner, but one thing I know for certain is there is no legal basis on the executive editing the constitution or having the constitution touched. So what are the basics? What exactly are we going to take out of this?
Okay. I mean, I think it's, first of all, there is no legal provision that says the executive cannot present what was the 2020 bill now amended as 2024 gazetted draft bill, right? Because you have to, see, our Constitution, Section 226, in detail outlines how you change different kinds of laws, including the Constitution, right? How you change it. A Constitution, because of the nature of it's a holistic, we're changing the whole Constitution, and it has an entrenched clauses that require a high threshold. The law, it tells you how to do it. It does not. There's no provision that goes before that. It just says that you present a bill.
Yeah.
Right. There's no law that says that if a bill is rejected, you can't even just change the title and bring it back. And I would challenge any legal authority to show me otherwise. There is nothing that says that they cannot do it. I think sometimes we focus on the wrong thing, because the CRC process was driven by all of us. The executive are the ones who championed it. The National Assembly passed it. They presented a law, they passed the bill, they used our taxpayers' money and produced a document. That is our national document. There's nothing wrong with using that, even though I don't agree with the amendment, right? But I don't think there's nothing stopping the executive from looking at that, taking an amendment and bringing it back. Okay, maybe we don't agree with what they have done with it, but there's legally nothing wrong. Maybe for me, what my problem is the legitimacy of doing it alone. So today, if all of us, if the government called us in a room or in a hall and say Gambians and with different stakeholders, Camara, here's the 2020 draft, right? We know it's not perfect, but it's a fairly good document. But we think that we need to tweak it. For example, we need to give work more on the youth aspect of the youth, or maybe minority religions and women. Come to the room and discuss. That's they could do that. To even tease your mind. There's no governing law You know, the CRC laid out what to do and the need for consultation. But right now, that doesn't exist. So there's a vacuum. So that's why there's no legal requirement. I mean, that's why if you they will, when they come, they'll probably tell you, oh, there's no legal requirement for us to consult. That's true. Legally, they're not required. There's no section that says you have to consult. But that is the right and legitimate thing to do.
So how does that, play out when by right, if you're drafting a document like this, it should be in collaboration with the citizens?
It is a legitimate expectation. Today,
I think it's good practice.
It's a legitimate expectation. I mean,
why isn't that in the law?
Why is it? Well, maybe we can. In some countries they do actually. Some countries they put in the law. I know. I know in Nigeria they have some of these laws that say there must be public consultation.
Right.
Maybe these are things that we can talk about, but it's not
the Kenyan 2010 as well.
Yeah. So
something like that.
Yeah. So, but like there are many. I mean, laws that have been passed here in the Gambia, and where the government has called us to give our views, even though there's no legal requirement. How many times have we done validation of laws?
A lot of.
How many times have we been? I mean, we have been. It has happened. I mean, even the cyber crimes. I mean, these things happen on a routine basis. Ordinary laws, the government. In fact, 2017 to now, the majority of laws that the government has made, they have involved civil society. They've involved from the moment they drafted. I mean, from the drafting stage to validation, they've involved people. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing. Right? So why would you not do that in the most important law?
Right.
You've done it for lesser important law, even though all laws are important. Now you have the mother of all laws, and you decide to say, I'm going to go it alone, and then dump it at Parliament. And then we have the discussion there. You know the danger of that. You see, when a process is flawed, it will affect the outcome, the legitimacy of the process. Because today, the National Assembly is a very partisan political chamber.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, from our history, we've seen that political parties tend to think along party parochial lines. That has been history of Gambia.
Right.
Today, the Afrobarometer report has shown that, according to the report, both the NPP and the UDP, their level of commitment, according to the report, is very low.
Very low. I think it's 34, 32.
Yeah, something like that. So that is what the people are. That's the perception of the people. So imagine now taking this document, which was rejected when there was consensus. There was a high level of consensus and consultation, a very high level. That document was rejected by the National Assembly by about 22, right, or 23. They needed 15, but they got about 22 or 23. Yeah. Now you go back and make more changes, right? So now make that same document that was rejected by 23 people. Now you make further changes without no consultation. And what do you expect to happen at the National Assembly? Because you have now compounded an already complicated issue.
Right.
They've made it even more complex.
Yeah, and that is the most scary
So
part.
looking at this now, right? Do you think when it goes to National Assembly, it will be voted for or against?
My honest opinion,
Yeah.
I would say it's a tall order. It's a tall order because it takes. Let me just put it bluntly to you. Unless UDP and NPP agree to have a constitution, we cannot have a constitution. If one of them disagrees, we don't have it. Because neither of them have the required number of votes to pass a constitution.
This makes
neither of them
sense.
has 75%. So each of them is a veto, has a veto power over the other.
Absolutely.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
I agree entirely.
Okay.
Because how many seats do we have for UDP?
22.
22, 23. I think.
22, 23, yeah.
And NPP has majority.
About 23 plus.
Yeah, but I think slightly.
One seat different.
And then the independents.
And the independents. So these two are the elephants in the house.
Yes.
If they can decide. Now they will decide whether this gazetted draft will make it, will pass or not. Or, like he said, whether we will have a constitution or not.
So
Now the option
quickly,
is
quickly.
we either have this like they said, or we go back to 1997 Constitution.
So let's forget about either we're gonna go to the back to the 1997 Constitution or the 2024 draft, right? Let's talk about this political part. I think I had this discussion with Uncle Sal this morning before we came here, right? The Constitution is a national document. It doesn't belong to the UDP, nor does it belongs to the MPP. You know, we know politics play a role in constitutional buildings, but at some point, both these parties must understand that the life and livelihood of every Gambian, including, you know, their immediate families and generation unborn, lies on this constitution. So it doesn't supposed to be about the rivalry and the political difference. It's supposed to be about national interest. That is one. Uncle Sal asked a question here that I want to answer. What is the way forward? I think the way forward is we find a way to meet back at the 2020 draft. The 1997 Constitution is a no-go area. But honestly, the 2024 draft is no-go area for me. Because at some point...
2020 or 2024?
The 2024, I mean. So we have to go back to the 2020 draft. We have to go and negotiate now those sections and clauses that gave us the controversy and then come back collectively as a people, not an executive constitution like this one. That is one.
What is the likelihood of that happening?
So I think... as much as I agree with Madi that this constitution 2024 is not negotiable, we have to go back to the table. I think 2020 draft, there have been loopholes, there have been mistakes from the civil society, from the National Assembly, from the executive. Let's say, for example, the National Assembly, the civil society, you know, we were part of the lobbying group. I remember that where we, you know, the way we approach the NAMs, the way we handle the negotiation was wrong. You know, in negotiations, if you do negotiations and leadership, you know, the pitfalls of negotiation, one of them is overconfident. And then overconfident means you sitting at a table with Sal and you make Sal feel like, no, I know it more than you. You have to take it my way, even though Uncle Sal have more power to make those decisions. That's what happens to us in 2020, right? And then also the National Assembly members now. There's no way. For now, we have two rules here as citizens, as civil society. It's either we block it at the National Assembly or a referendum. But I don't think it will pass the National Assembly.
Okay, I think you really brilliant analysis. I mean, I don't agree with Madi that we should recall the bill. I think the bill is already gazetted and we don't have time.
The 2024.
Yes, it's already gazetted, and as I say, water under the bridge. So it's what do we do from now until the time it goes to the National Assembly. So now the power to pass this constitution or not rest on the National Assembly. What are the lessons to learn from the previous approach? I remember we were part of the Constitution We Want group where we were really going to the communities talking about coalition, right? And also I remember also when sometimes civil society is not one homogeneous group. There was some civil society members of civil society who are very adamant that the National Assembly cannot touch. I don't think it is wise or prudent to tell somebody who has the power that you can't use the power, right? You could, Madi and I, when he started Don't Touch, we had a long disagreement. I said, look, Madi, whether you like it or not, the National Assembly are vested with the legal authority to touch the bill. What we should do is one thing. Either implore them, say, look, we know you have the power to do it. But given that this document is a product of national consensus and consultation, including you, because they also were part of the people who were consulted, we would like you, you can just to sort of not touch it or make cosmetic touches on it in things like how things are worded in a few areas, and then give it back to the people to decide. For me, I said that for me that was my favorite approach, right? But obviously, we're learning and unlearning from our experiences. Right. So now, here we have to be pragmatic as well. You can be sentimental, but at some point we put the sentiment aside and be pragmatic. Because we, like Omar said, we don't want the 97. We all agree with that. Yeah. But we also don't want the 2024. We want the 2020. We want the 2020, or as close as we can get to it, right? So for that purpose, we need to really build high level of political consensus. No, I would say national consensus, not political. It's national consensus, which means we have to almost dip as much as possible to almost look at it as a national project, not as a political project. It has political ramifications, yes, but it is beyond politics.
Yes.
This is apart from removing Jammeh in 2017. This is the most important time for Gambians to come together. I think the Gambian citizens should come out and tell the government
What they
and
want.
political parties that all of you incumbent, you guys who are also outside who want to be in, we are your bosses. You are supposed to serve our interests. So for that purpose, we want a constitution that reflects our aspirations. We should be very, very loud about asking the government, right, that we want this constitution, the government and the parliamentarians, because parliamentarians are there for us, that we want this process should be it should be above party politics, right? It's not tit for tat. Like the last time the NPP guys rejected it because it didn't serve their purpose. This time the UDP guys don't accept the change in the process. They also might vote against it. I think we should think beyond that. We should think, about generations of Gambians. Imagine 2016 to 2024, we don't have a term limit, right? If this fails, right, that means the incumbent can stay as long as he wants. There's nothing that's stopping him from staying as long as he's elected, right? We also have this constitution allows us to vote 50+1. The majority of Gambians will choose their leader, and we have second round, which means that we can always build consensus rather than being very polarized. We'll miss that opportunity, and if we miss this opportunity in 2025, 2026 we're in election period, and when will we have a constitution?
That's
so
right.
So I think we have to really put a lot of thought, and we have to really engage the political leaders and civil society. Every single Gambian should make it their endeavor to shout loud that we don't want the 1997 constitution. We want a constitution that reflects our aspiration, that will defend our interests and our welfare.
So quick one, maybe this is just me, this is a naive question,
No, it's not.
Just someone that is completely uninformed. But how hard is it to do a constitution that's for the people, that's beneficial to the Gambian? How hard can it be?
It is not easy, right? The 2020, there are many people who don't like the Christian community, for example, don't like the 2020 constitution. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Despite all the consultations, despite, in my opinion, there are provisions that I think, to a large extent, even though we don't have the word secular, but there are provisions that actually protect the
minorities like religious.
For example, you cannot have a one state. The president cannot declare one state. Neither can the parliament. These are clearly in the constitution and so on and so forth. Sharia applies to Muslims, right? But the Christians are still not happy. So it's very difficult. You cannot please everybody. Even the women they're still not happy. The youths are not happy. But now, so to do it, we have to really understand that we're going to make everybody happy, but we have to really strike that balance. There's some things that are for me, having a term limit, having 50+1, and having a good Bill of Rights section, and having socio-economic, for me, it's a good start.
Yeah,
it's a good start.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so
it's what everything else.
That's why I said we don't want a perfect constitution. We want a progressive constitution.
No, you cannot get that, a perfect one.
So we need to outline at this point of our life as Gambians what are the urgencies in our laws that we want as a progressive nation. We agree on those ones, right? And we move forward. I think the best right now is to go back to the table. We need to negotiate. Yes. We need to recognize each other's roles and powers, and then, restructure our approach, like Uncle Sal said. We must be pragmatic, but we also must be acknowledging each other's role as far as the constitutional building is concerned. If we do that, we will get to an agreement. But now, also, one of my advice is I think Gambians need to read the constitution, because what happened is when the draft came out, and one of the people that did this is seen as a legal expert and analyst on social media. The person rose and say that in the draft constitution 2024, the word circular have been removed. The word circular have not even been in the 2020 draft.
Even in 97.
Exactly.
Removed, yeah.
So
only republic.
Yeah, the Gambia is a sovereign republic.
Yes.
But having to
what's the difference?
So secular republic is more of saying that religious is not acknowledged.
Yeah.
Religious is not acknowledged. The law is against. Is
That
a
was
whole lot of
secular.
No,
interpretation.
I think, just briefly, secular means in this country, religion and state are separate. It doesn't say that religion is not important or not. It says that religion is a personal matter for individuals, and the state doesn't operate as it's a religious entity.
Right.
That's what it means.
So
and
more
I
like
think that
neutral.
was the ambiguity that stroke that debate about secular
So that's what I'm saying. In the,
during the consultation
Yeah,
process.
in the Gambian context, it has been misinterpreted.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
the
so
word
a
secular-
republic would be.
I mean, a republic means that, in the republic, everyone is equal, right? And the constitution defines our relationship. Everybody have freedom to practice their religion and without any discrimination, broadly speaking. But also because in certain countries where you have who are considered as secular, also it's seen as some people see it as also a way of opening certain societies to certain
Certain doors.
cultural mores that are not acceptable to our religion or our culture. So
Exactly.
so but I think because Gambia we've always tried to have a balance. I mean, of allowing religious existence and religious coexistence and tolerance. But there was, and also minority groups also because of the way Jammeh behaved, they feel insecure. They want the word secular because it gives them the assurance that it is very, very clear. Because really, you can't say that Gambia, you cannot have Sharia in a constitution and call the constitution secular.
Yeah.
It's a contradiction in terms.
It is, yeah.
So this is the reality. But that is not to say that you cannot protect everybody and give them the deserved protection, particularly minorities. I think that's where we need to have more discussions, for example, in the draft to really assure the minorities have more protection.
To add to your strategy, I think to begin with, civil society and the political parties should come together and try to reconcile the difference that is the party differences. Once we get that on the table, where this political parties and civil society, both political parties, I mean all the political parties meet and let us have a strategy around this with national interest in mind.
Can I help you with that, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem.
See, I mean, there's already a process, right, which I also find problematic. There's a process where you have international idea, right? They have been trying to build political consensus from the time of Jonathan.
The negotiation stage.
President Jonathan and Dr. Chambers, and we have the moral guarantors, but I think the focus has always been on getting the political parties to agree, right? Which is good, but they have never really given civil society a seat at the table.
Yes, I think I remember that. There was at one point civil society was not in line with what Jonathan was on.
No, so it's not about Jonathan. Jonathan is somebody but I'm just saying I was part of the process.
But the team.
So the civil society was just being briefed. They were just briefing us about what is happening, because what has been happening is political parties are haggling, looking at their different interests, right? Rightly or wrongly. But civil society, I believe we look from a national point of view. Political parties are looking from their political interests. For example, look at things like holding accountability in political parties, right? Mm-hmm. Accountability. Yes. The need for political parties to publish their accounts, right? They don't want to do that. Yes. The incumbent doesn't want to do it. Those in waiting don't want to do it, yes. Right? So even in the current draft, the provision is, removed that if you're a political party, you have to produce your account. You have to publish your account.
Right.
And also, you cannot
accept
donations from non-Gambians and companies. Nothing. So who puts money into the political party? Most political parties don't want that. Most of them. I think that's one area where there's a convergence. So that shows you, if you leave it to political interests, you will not have.
There are not national interests.
No, there's not. It's not always. It's not always in line with our supreme national interest. That's why you need civil society as the honest broker in the middle.
Right.
And I think that's where the process is flawed. Mm-hmm. In civil society, we just come to tick the boxes. They'll come brief us what you think, and then they go back. But if you're trying to negotiate what those NPP or UDP or
DOI
or NRP or DOI want, after all of those people are going to be elected to serve our interests, I think also the citizens' interest should be reflected.
Should actually be on the table.
On the
primarily.
table.
Yeah.
So that's why it's problematic. That's why in some countries, when you're doing a constitutional building, you create what they call a constituent assembly. So you create a system that actually has different representation: civil society, political parties, government workers, clergy, religious leaders, and so on and so forth, and insulate that process from the political process. That is what produces a very good constitution. But of course, that's not what we did. We did that in the sense that there's a CRC that produced the constitution. But now, when it comes to really finalizing the constitution, it's still issue of politicians agreeing
or disagreeing.
Or disagreeing. And that is our problem. And they will look at they tend to look at their political interests.
Because that's the thing. If you take a national document like the Constitution and make it more of a political tool or document, that's what happens. Because when Jonathan was here, I had this conversation with Mad, and I was like, okay, so it's now the draft Constitution and the negotiation. The Constitution is about political parties. What they want and what they don't want, what they agree on and what they don't agree on. MPP will say this, UDP will say this, NRP will say this, and it becomes a political tool for these parties.
And that's what it is. That's where we are.
And that is why we are.
That's why we are where we are.
That is why we are in this problem. And now moving forward, the same problem will happen in the assembly.
Yes.
The negotiations to touch, not to touch, to pass, not to pass, will not rely on us, you, and our national interest. Was simply going to be because one party wants this and the other party wants this, and they disagree on our behalf and speak on our behalf and accept or reject on our behalf.
How do we break this?
I mean, are they speaking on our behalf?
That's what
I don't really speak on our behalf.
That's a big question mark.
Technically, every National Assembly member, anytime you speak at the Parliament, you speak on behalf of your electorate.
You're supposed to speak on our behalf.
Yeah.
But are they speaking on our behalf?
That's a question now.
Today, I have to go back to the CRP,
the survey.
They say in terms of the performance of the different
arms of government.
Citizens have the least confidence in the National Assembly.
Imagine
the president is top at 36%, right?
Yes, they trust the president 36%
over the citizen.
I mean, that's 36% of the president trust the president as his performance. Only 30, which is also low.
No, that is low. Like out of every 10, 4 people believe that the president is
performing. And for National Assembly, for local authority is 32. 32. For National Assembly is 31, the lowest. So that tells you something. That's the perception of the people. So is it the People's Assembly?
Yes. Out of every 10
Gambians. If it has the lowest.
Meaning out of every 10 Gambians that you ask, only 3 people believe that the National Assembly is performing or they trust they are doing their job well.
Yes.
Serious decline.
Yes.
Every 3
only 3 out of 10.
Yes. Gambians.
So people don't trust their norms.
The people that we elect, if we don't trust them enough, I mean we have a crisis. We have a legitimacy crisis in this country. It is very serious.
How do we?
And now that document is going back to those people. I mean, for me, just to, I remember watching the debate during the 2020. And I heard the National Assembly saying that the National Assembly, this constitution is giving them too much power.
Yeah, I remember. I remember
Yes,
the
yes.
I remember the NAM that in fact debate that I was shocked. I was like, so what is happening?
So when the National Assembly is now talking like that, I mean, for me, I'm like, no. We are really in ICU, intensive care unit. Yeah. I mean, these are people who are supposed to defend our interests, hold executive account. They are saying that no, we want the executive to have more power, so we cannot hold them accountable. Come on.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Think about it.
So I think people like you, you guys should go into National Assembly. I'm saying. Look, if the only way we can, people focus on the presidency. The most important place in politics in this country is the National Assembly.
Of course.
Because people, see, when the government changed, people were so much focused on the executive and forgot the National Assembly. But now we're seeing that the problem really, to a large extent, is the current National Assembly we want with all due respect. I mean, I respect the institution, and so on and so forth. But I think
it could be better.
They are not measuring up.
Yeah.
They tend to pass things that benefit them. Very self-serving.
I think that is as a result of the bar to get to the parliament also, Uncle Sal, is too low. We couldn't discriminate.
Yes. What's the requirement?
I think it's
grade
high.
9.
I think grade 9.
Grade 9?
Sorry.
So that is not a problem at some point.
No, it
It
is.
is a problem if you look at the standard of
wait,
education
for
you have.
discriminative purpose, let's just clear
No,
this. I don't want to be on
yeah,
legal.
for all intents and purposes, we don't want to discriminate anyone.
Exactly. So,
But like you mentioned here, we have to set the bar high. We have to respect standards. This country, I think one of the part of our problems is mediocrity.
yeah, but it's not that's not just the National Assembly. Even your ministers, the highest qualification they could have.
This is it.
High school.
But I think we need to look at it more deeper than that. Okay, there are different things you need. You need the technical, the competence and capacity.
Yeah.
That is maybe measured by your level of education.
Experience
But,
too.
and experience too. But integrity has nothing to do with qualification.
That's
agree.
absolutely
and
true.
then that is
That's
and then that is the thing. The
But,
thing is,
I mean,
let's come to that. Let me land from
that's
that.
true.
I agree because we have seen people with the highest qualification in this country as high as
Yes.
doctorates and professors, and then they are doing
Exactly.
nothing.
So I think so for me that's why that that provision about leadership and integrity is important, because it's not about ideally we want people who are sufficiently educated or experienced to hold public office so that they can deliver, because the things that they're dealing with in parliament can be very complex. There are people who may have gone to university but will make great parliamentarians. I'm not saying that it's only even with the presidency and so on and so forth. I want people who can do the job. Leadership, you don't learn it in school, but it's more about ethical leadership. And that is not something you necessarily learn from school. So our problem is more about ethical leadership. It's not only necessarily about, we also have capacity issues, it's obvious.
Capacity gap.
But the bigger issue is the integrity because a lot of the things that are done, it seems like they tend to forget who they're serving.
Yeah, their consent
Yeah.
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 They tend to forget.
Yeah.
feels them most of the time.
For me, it's like almost like when of course, even when civil society may have been aggressive towards the NAM, National Assembly members. I think, with respect, you are a public official. People might talk to you differently, but I think you have to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture. You have to have. If you're in a public office, you have to have thick skin.
You have to have thick
because,
skin.
if not, you have no business being in public
It's a
office.
decision you make.
Yeah, but you have a much bigger objective. You are representing the country. See, when you're a National Assembly member, you're not representing your constituency alone. In fact, your supreme authority to the Gambian is very clear in the Constitution. It's not that I am from Banjul North, I'm representing Banjul North. Because you cannot do much for Banjul. You cannot bring a road to Banjul North as a National Assembly.
Right.
You're making legislation for the whole country.
Right.
You're approving a budget for the whole country. So you're representing all Gambians. That is very clear, and it tells you very clearly in the Constitution that the supreme interest of Gambia should always be foremost in your decision making, not yourself or your parochial interest. It's in black and white in the Constitution.
So this is why I think, the education part is important, because that also shows you at least you've committed yourself to going through a process of education. But I would take a track record over even education. I think that trumps anything else.
Absolutely.
That really shows you if you have integrity or if you're like a great leader.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that I'm hearing, it's a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around, because I have to watch this episode again to really grasp the gravity of this issue, because it is a very, very serious issue. Like with the standard that we are currently being ruled with, governed with, it's too low. It's quite heartbreaking if you ask me.
Yeah, but I think that is on us, Gano. I think this kind of society we say, because one thing I once said, and I keep saying this, see, Barrow, the ministers, the National Assembly members, also they were born and brought up in the Gambia, in our societies, went to our Gambian schools. So generally sometimes they reflect, what our society looks like.
Semblance.
That is what is said. Because if I appoint Sal today, I will tell Sal, this is your TOR, this is what you're supposed to do. But what he does becomes who he is and what he represents.
Yeah.
So I think as a community, as a society, we are in a very, very critical part of our lives.
Yeah.
The constitutional building is getting to another level, but also this happens, if you remember in Tunisia, today they have a similar thing. They have an executive constitution, a very dictatorial constitution today, and this is how they struggle with it.
Yes.
So the slighted, we got naive with what we want today. We all want to be rigid. We all want to say we know what we want. We're not going to compromise. We're not going to listen to each other. We don't even need to go to the table. This is what we want. The moment we too much stand on that, we will all lose what we want.
You wanted to add something. It's insane. Dr. Bah, you wanted to jump in quickly, but I think you wanted to make a point.
I just
no, you can.
It really breaks my heart, because when I remember in 2016, if anybody who was around, you know how it works, and the euphoria. If you in this Camara Avenue from the euphoria, we were at the zenith. Gambians, it's like you felt like every Gambian felt like you won the lottery. That this is the best thing that ever happened in your life, right? And the expectations we have as a Gambian, and the bravery of these young men who were standing up to tell Jammeh no, when there were troops, military in every junction with their guns. But the young people were saying, no, we decided. We want to move away from this. Peacefully, Gambians did it. The young people were very, very brave in this country. And then we make sure that the voice of the Gambian people was heard and was not taken away by one man. We mustered this. There was no fear, the courage to say, that's enough is enough. And we start talking about never again. Today, that system we're trying to replace, we replace an individual, and left a system intact. And for me, this lack of insincerity, the insincerity of trying, using the same tools of Jammeh's playbook to give us a new Gambia. For me, we should learn from history. See, today in Senegal, the Jammeh and Sonko government are going after Maki's people with the same Maki laws. When Maki came, he was complaining about Ablaye Wade, and he kept the constitution, in a way that it was an imperial presidency. Senegal president has so much power, more than even the Ghana president. Oh yes, that's why Senegal almost had a crisis, because the president has so much power in the constitution. And Maki didn't. Ablaye Wade had it. Maki didn't change. Maki kept it like that because it worked for him. And look what happened in Senegal. In the end, he left unceremoniously. He left like Jammeh left. Who would have imagined Macky Sall would have left like that?
Yeah.
So we should learn. Today, his people are complaining. So you see, leaders will come and go. The same laws that you think will be self-serving could go against you.
Yeah.
Buhari, the laws against assembly affected him when he was in politics. He had to go to court. So I think we should be serious and be sincere to our people.
Yeah.
See, constitution is not a self-serving
document
endeavor. This is the most noble of endeavors that we can really engage in as a people. And I think the cabinet really, in my opinion, they're not looking at the interests of the Gambian people. They're really looking at how they can consolidate their power. And I don't think that is in the interest of Gambia, because that's not the Gambia we want. We as a Gambia, we decided against that kind of Gambia, because that was what Jammeh represented. We don't want an imperial presidency. We want a presidency that can do, the president that can do his or her job, but can be held accountable.
Right.
We want a balance. We want a separation of power. We want an independent judiciary. We want a parliament that is functional, and also we want a participatory democracy. We want people to be able to participate in the democracy. And one of the ways we participate in democracy is through our National Assembly members. Today, when someone wants to be a minister or want to be IGP, your National Assembly will be asking questions. Today, as in this Gambia, I register in Banjul North. We have a WhatsApp group with my National Assembly member. Before he goes to Parliament, he comes to our WhatsApp group. We tell him what questions we think should be asked. We raise questions. Today, there's so much engagement.
Right.
So that's a way. So anything I want, I'll tell Mr. Bah. This is as a citizen, and also from Banjul. Someone who's registered in Banjul North. This is the question I would like you to raise in Parliament, and many others. So he will go to Parliament and will say, if he comes back, we say, no, we didn't agree with that. So that's the way of making sure that he's also representing us.
Yeah.
So National Assembly is very, very important. But now you want to really dilute our ability to hold government accountable. I think that is really, really scary,
It is.
to say the least.
I completely agree with you. Maybe we should try and see if we can get one or two of them on the show.
Absolutely.
You know, with just someone like you and you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Baji wanted to jump in quickly. I know we've kind of, when you sit here and start talking, you don't realize time is going, and he's been waiting for some time now. So, Dr. Baji.
No, I'm glad you gave them the platform, and I want to petition on behalf of everybody who's listening for you to continue having a constitutional show, even if it's on a weekly basis, every other week, because I do believe, as Sal said, this is the most important time in our generation. And I remember because I was 12 years old when the 1997 Constitution came into being. The 12-year-old me did not have any idea what consequences of this Constitution that was honestly a people's document would have on the 30-year-old Gambian than I am today. And every single aspect of our life is influenced by a document, right? So I always ask, and what's disheartening about it is too many times I don't think we're making decisions about our country based on the 12-year-old Gambian. Does this document, instrument, plan put a 12-year-old Gambian in the best place to self-actualize or see a little bit of prosperity? And I think that's what it comes down to it. So as much as we even want to point pictures, I think any society where civic education is low, and when I mean civic education, as in there's 30-year-old Gambians who actually can't articulate the three branches of government, it makes it easy for a very few minority to make decisions on the majority. And I feel like oftentimes by the time we're victimized, we miss the opportunity for participation. So I think more than anything else, this is like a significant progress in our society, the fact that we are doing things different from 1997. Now it's on every single one of us to keep this Constitution issue front and center, because we also have a very short attention span of a society where we're always chasing the next shiny object when honestly, this is the most important time. So I just want to commend the legal experts because yes, most people think it's a political document. Most people think it's a legal document, but now is when we need the legal minds, the civic society, to break it down and distill it where a 12-year-old Gambian could know what separation of powers mean, what conflicts of interest means, what access to education means. Because whether we like it or not, choosing our leaders, voting on a referendum, Gambian population base from 18 to 25 will influence every single decision at the ballot for the rest of Gambia. Because as we know, half of our population is under 18 years old. Any leader, any document. So young people now is when they need to be equipped and informed the right way, like the likes of, my brother Sal, Lamin, Omar, so that we could have a decision. So even if in the short term we don't succeed, we still have an opportunity to choose the leaders that represent our future, not based on the failures of the past, but what we want for the future. So that's all the perspective. It's not a politician thing. It's not a business person thing. It's not a healthcare professional thing. Every Gambian should care enough to participate in this process, because the most glaring thing that I heard today was the Constitution of 1997 was amended 52 times in 20 years. When we see countries like America, where in 230 years plus, it was only amended 27 times. That goes to show you when a people kind of shape the destiny of a country. So thank you, Gando. We have to keep having these conversations at all levels in different local languages. And I do believe that the Gambia is in a better place today to kind of shape the future that we want, that we were 1997. And people like me do remember 2016, when people like Sal put their life on the line for what's right. And I think courage and character, just to end everything, competency is nice, but being courageous and having character to do the right thing will determine what happens now and later. So I really commend all the panelists, and hopefully we could have more conversation in different languages and invite angles from every single aspect of society to join the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Thank you for chipping in, Dr. Baji. I think we should definitely have this again.
Maybe like he said, maybe let's say in 30 years' time, my 8-month boy will tell me, Dad, what did you do when the constitution this particular constitution was passed? I don't know what to do right now. As I can, it's like I found myself powerless. What can I do? What can I do to change this situation right now for him and for many others? What can I do?
I think more conversations. It's
crazy.
Yeah, I think what we need to do, like I keep saying, I think you've joined some of the Twitter space that I handle. I say one thing is to be here, but the other thing is to take it down, and then that is one of the issues we have as advocates, as civil society. We speak languages that are hard for the ordinary Gambians to understand. And today, like, every ordinary Gambian should be able to understand the constitution. And then where are we? Why are we here in the first place? What do we need to do? Like Ismaila said, that he was 12 when the 1997 constitution, I think I was 2 or 3 because of 94, I was 2 or 3. So I was 2 or 3 and I was grown up. I grew up in a family. My dad was, with Jammeh at that time. So my dad was a party to the kind of constitution we had because he was chairperson, he was governor, so he was. So I couldn't imagine having to get, older in that kind of a constitution. But today I'm here discussing the constitution. But do we reflect that somebody else like me in 1997 is 2 years, is 3 years, is 4 years? How do they understand this constitution? And then the other thing also is when we say let's talk to the people, it's not about going there and saying what we need to say. How do we make them understand?
Yeah.
Like when let's say today, if my mom have listened to Sal in a Wolof or a Mandinka language, she would have understood what constitutional mean and constitutional building and what is her role as far as an ordinary gardener in Bansang is concerned.
Right.
So these are the things that we need to do.
Yeah.
This is a very good conversation. We have this and other conversation like Madi said. Like I have another one tomorrow with iAfrica TV. So the media should. For the next, because we have a very limited time.
Absolutely.
There's no time. By the time we realize it's December, and what do we do now against December is the question.
We all have vested interest in this, so it's not just like a lawyer's conversation or people that are participating. It's everybody's conversation.
Everyone.
Yeah. I think first of all, I would like to correct you. I mean, you are what you think. I think you should listen to Dr. Baji. He's a great motivational speaker. And it's very inspirational.
Yeah.
You cannot even start saying that you are powerless. See, when we were starting Gamma Decided, I'll just give a little quick story. I mean, it was a conversation I had with a young lady called Asta Job, who was saying, "Oh, what are we going to do about it? We can't." I'm like, "Yeah, we have to. We can do something about it. Why don't we get together? A bunch of us, 6, 7, 8 of us." I mean, he knows. He's also was very much active. So sometimes you cannot. You have to be able to imagine the possibilities. Don't say it's not possible or you're powerless. You are not powerless. Today, the power you have now, we didn't have it then. Now the power we have, we didn't have it then. What I just learned, and I go around different parts of the world talking about citizen engagement and mobilization. All it takes is people who are really committed and focused, right? We need to understand that this is what we want as Gambians, and tell our authorities that we want a people-centered constitution, and it's not up to them; it's up to us. The power really is in us, right? We need to know how to use the power. Of course, within the realm of the law, I have to add that. But look tomorrow. For me, if we say we want to have a peaceful protest about the constitution, I'll be in the streets. If we say that we want 1,000 Gambians to walk peacefully and say we want draft 2020, why not?
Yeah.
Peacefully, it's possible, right? Possible, just like people were protesting about FGM peacefully. We can say that we want a people-centered constitution, or we don't want. These are things that we can do it peacefully in the law. But we need to you need to have the courage of conviction to be able to stick your neck out for what you believe in. But not many Gambians do that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about what you can lose, and for that reason you will not take action.
And this is the fear factor.
Of course, but we have broken that fear factor already.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, if we did not fear Jammeh, who else can we fear?
Exactly.
Because we really have the power.
Yeah.
We have the power. We just have to be able to tell them that you are here for us, and we want we all we're asking for is just do right by us. It's not too much to ask for.
Is it maybe it's because, unlike Jammeh, who was using military and guns and, cannons to scare people, is it maybe because people don't really see
I tell you what it is, right? I was telling somebody, I was interviewed on some international TV, and I told them, after Gambians decided, I was very, very overzealous. I was ranting a lot all over the place, because even in the new government, within the first 3-4 months, they wanted to violate the constitution. Remember?
Yeah.
But not many Gambians were talking because they didn't feel like it was important. And I'm telling them, look, it is easier to dismantle a dictatorship than to build a democracy. Mark that. It is easier to dismantle. Tunisia, they've dismantled a dictatorship, but they have not built a democracy. Sudan, they have dismantled the military. They have not built a dictatorship. A democracy. See, the toolkit required to build a democracy is different from the toolkit required to dismantle a dictatorship. See, when people got together in 2016-17, we all agreed that Jammeh is an existential threat.
He needs to go.
Yes, all of us. With our differences and everything else, we said, you know what? One thing we agree about, this guy has to go. He's not good for us. I think also having a constitution, for me, the right constitution, is as important as that. Like Dr. Bah said, it's about the aspirations of our little children, where they will be in the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
It's very, very important. So not having a constitution is really, for me, a big threat to our future as Gambians, or the kind of Gambians we want to be.
We need to see it as an existential crisis.
It is actually. That's what you got it right.
Yeah.
That's the word. It's an existential crisis.
It is,
so we need to
actually.
break this down to the ordinary citizen, to that baker. They go, look, this will have a bearing on your future as a farmer. Every Gambian is important. The one in Banjul, the one in Coin. In fact, it affects those people more than even us.
Exactly. I mentioned it.
So I think we have to really go and we need to really mobilize and say, look, clearly that we have to tell the executive where we stand. We have to tell our NAMs where we stand. We have to educate the population to know not only the words, but the import. You can read something, but what does it mean? We need to break it down to a level so that people can make an informed decision about where they want to be and tell their NAMs that if you want to represent us, this is the direction we want you to go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So that is it. I think I totally agree with Uncle Sal that what we need right now, what we need to do is to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And then the conversation must be as clear as what do we want, what type of constitution do we want, and where do we want this constitution to take us. Like I said, the constitutional building is kind of very dangerous for me, I would say. I would have never, with my interest in TJ and all the reading lately, I would have not imagined that Tunisia will have a very dictatorial constitution today in existence. But that is as a result of what the citizens pay attention to, what do they communicate, and how do they do this. So I think for us now, what we need to do, we have very limited time. We need to do this in 3 months before the first reading, because the worst case scenario is having the constitution thrown out in the first reading or pass. It can be rejected from the first reading, like it does with the draft.
The draft 20,
the second reading.
What we need to do is now, how do we mobilize ourselves? Use media, use other mechanism of advocacy to make every ordinary Gambian understand their position as far as the constitution building is concerned, and speak one voice to the executive.
Yeah, agreed.
We give you power, and then the power belongs to us. And then what you do with that power must reflect our needs and aspirations as a Gambian people. And until then, we will keep struggling, and we may fail. And this time around, if we fail, we may also register a state fail. Thank you.
Agreed.
Absolutely. I think I would echo the same thing Omar and Sal mentioned here. The conversation should be kept on. We need to have this talk. And also, it should be filtered down to the laymen in the society, especially our moms who are living in the last villages over there.
Yeah.
The people who are basically the key participants when it comes to governance. Because when it comes to voting, yeah, we vote, but most of them they are the kingmakers. Majority of our voters, people who vote the politicians into office, come from these small villages. When imagine when it's time for election, the number of voters that come out of these places cannot be compared to the elite zones. So therefore, the conversation should be filtered down to them. And he mentioned about mobilization. You cannot have a social movement without proper mobilization. We need that. We need to be organized around this. We need a good mobilization strategy in which all stakeholders, the political parties, civil society, will speak one voice with the electorates. It's important.
Yeah.
The moment we can have this, if we can have this, I'm sure there is going to be a major change that we can effect. But other than that, I mean, I don't know what to say.
I agree.
But I'm hopeful, like he mentioned. I'm hopeful. I cannot be less hopeful. I want to be optimistic, like he said. I have to be optimistic for this, for our people, for myself, for my country, and for the generations unborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And on that note, we will close here. But the last thing I just wanted to, piggyback on what he said is, some people are not, they can't really grasp what the Constitution says. We need to find a way to articulate what it means. Like people, regardless of language and background, they understand what something means. But so if we can really articulate this well, I guess the gardener and the deepest parts of Basse would understand. Because if they know this is, it's their life at stake, if they understand that, if they understand the meaning, I think this conversation would keep going on, and they would engage themselves more in the future. So on that note, I thank you guys very much for coming through, and thank you guys for the listeners on Twitter